per year backfilling when someone's on vacation.
Right, so then we get rid of the back.
Good evening, board members and residents. Would like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, February 25th, 2013. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Witt. Will you take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Brado. Here. Mr. Capral.
Here.
Mr. Swikowski.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. York.
Here.
Mr. Witt, here. Mr. Verkast.
Here. Thank you. Next is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of February 11, 2013. Approval of the bills in the amount of $1,125,997.06. Approval of the Knights of Columbus Annual Tootsie Roll Drive, March 22nd through 24th, 2013. And to concur with the emergency repair of the Coleridge Sanitary Sewer Lift Station in the amount of $3,740 to A&C Electric Company. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, I've asked to add item B2, which is a discussion regarding the ordinance officer posting the position, the discussion regarding that position. Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. York. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Swikowski. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next is the announcements. I don't see any representatives in the audience that might wish to come up. So, did you want to speak? No? Okay. All right, I
You're
thought so.
gonna wait all meeting?
Yep.
I'd take your opportunity now.
Yeah. I know that the only other items that are really coming up that are on the agenda are Parks and Rec related, but they're pretty far out there.
Yep.
So I don't know if you'd want to mention a word on them or just let folks know what's coming up.
Just a short notice for one of the events, which is our Mac to Metro bike ride, which we ride from Mackinac City down to Harrison Township at Metro Beach. And we do it in about 6 days. The approximate mileage per day is about 60 to 65 miles. We camp out at different locations, scheduled to start June 17th, and it finishes on that Saturday. I think it's the 21st or 22nd.
So that's a little ways off in the distance, but if folks wanted to reserve a time, June 17 to,
Just so they can get their vacation sorted out, so they can.
Start training.
yeah, there you go. All right. Are there any other announcements?
I do have one. The 28th, February 28th is the last day that you can pay your taxes at the township. As of March 1st, they will, any delinquent taxes will need to be paid at the Macomb County Treasurer's Office.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to item B1, proposal from Tringali Sanitation to reduce costs for waste collection for the remaining 2 years of the contract. Board members, as you know, a month ago, the discussion came before the board to explore the option in the contract. The original contract, as it was bid, was for 5 years. And Tringali Sanitation was very close. We had some competitive bids. Tringali Sanitation was the successful bidder, and they were awarded the contract. I believe it was during the finalizing of that contract that one of the considerations was in the event that we had poor service or concerns about service, I think a clause was added that would allow us to escape or terminate that contract after a 3-year period. May 1st of this year is that 3-year anniversary, so the board does have the legal right to get out of that contract. The consideration was brought before this board to send out a letter asking for bids from other suppliers. And at that time, when we discussed that, Tringali had asked for the opportunity to submit a letter back to the board for tonight's meeting for consideration. And they've done that. So within the board packet is a proposal from Tringali with 2 options. As they outlined in the letter, they've provided a good service. I think I would agree with that. I don't know that this board has had any major issues with Tringali. Their service has been good, so I don't believe that we're looking at this issue strictly based on service. They've offered a couple of different options for different prices. And then, as you know, Friday, we received a letter from Rizzo Environmental Services, and within their letter, they've made a proposal, might say a counter proposal or another offer for 3-year and 5-year pricing within there. And they've offered different options, incentives, or whatnot. So before the board tonight would be the option to continue in our relationship with Tringali, or presumably, if we were to do so, to continue with the relationship with either a 2 or 3-year period. They've outlined a couple. A second option would be to consider changing the contract to Rizzo, or to establishing a relationship with Rizzo. And I presume a third would still be to send out and acquire estimates, although we have to be mindful that it's already the end of February. And if we were going to entertain any other options, we've got really about 2 months before we've got to have something in place. So those are the options before this board. Is there any discussion or a motion?
You know, this is why I didn't want to have, I wanted to do a bid process right from the get-go. Because you get one in and that becomes public, and then you already know where the bar is, then, you know, somebody can always come in lower. That's just the way it goes. Now, looking at this, I have no, you know, I like everybody, I like Tringali, you know, I really don't know Rizzo, you know, but I don't hear any complaints either. So let me just preface. Based on these proposals, you know, Tringali, they're coming in at 156, 162, and 168 if we, and I'm just using option 2 for 3 years.
Okay.
156, 62, 68. Rizzo is coming in at 153, 153, 153, which, I mean, by year 3, it's a 10%, obviously, you know, discount for the residents. But this is where I get a little confused. Rizzo is saying that they are going to provide roll-off services, all right, to all township facilities, so that's the same as Tringali.
I think so.
Rizzo is going to be offering brush chipping service. I don't believe we get that right now,
We get yard waste pickup that takes care of everything that anybody puts at the curb,
including trees.
including trees that are cut to the right size.
We
Yeah.
take it, yes. We've always taken it, and we take the bulk also at the proposals. We also take that automatically.
Okay.
So we
Oh, I
already,
paid
we already
it.
do the services for free.
So it might be a restatement. I mean, I think we'll, yeah.
Well, the chipper program, it's more of a chipper program.
Right.
Where, you
What
know,
I would
once-
suggest is we might give those folks an opportunity to
Well,
answer
let me
them.
just-
I was just gonna say, I think they might each have that, you know, desire to,
Should we
I'm
allow
sorry.
each company to make a small
that's
project?
what I was trying to say. We
Yeah.
might wanna offer that instead of engaging in banter.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
I'm not engaging in banner, I'm going through the contract, so the citizens and everybody here understands exactly what we're dealing with. I have the contract, or the proposals in front of me. the citizens don't have benefit of that, so I was just going through them to start the discussion,
Right.
since nobody else has started the discussion.
And all I was doing was encouraging us not to enter into conversation. Maybe during public comments, we might invite some of those folks to
That's
come up.
fine. If the petitioners want to come up, they can speak. Sure. That's fine. Rizzo, is there a representative from Rizzo here tonight? Okay. If I read this correctly, Rizzo is going to, for the first quarter, not charge the residents any fees for the first quarter.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's a $40 savings for the citizens roughly in year one for one quarter.
I'm sorry? 40, how's
Well,
40,
he's
12
giving-
times 3 is,
He's giving a bid rebate program to the residents of one
Okay.
quarter.
yep, I'm sorry.
So I'm just taking roughly $160,
Okay.
$40, $38.50, whatever, if they're awarded the
Sorry.
contract. And they're also gonna include a one-time administrative payment for all of the bills and everything that we pay, a one-time payment, I mean, it's $300,000 as a one-time payment to the community for doing all of the administrative, all the billing and everything that we have to mail out and things like that. I'm just gonna say that's $100,000 every year for 3 years, to make it easy. And like I said, nothing personal, just based on a money issue. I don't know how we could do anything but take the Rizzo bid, based strictly on money.
I do have some hard copies too with additional information, if it's okay to pass out.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I'm not gonna go through another hard copy tonight. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it's
There's
at your
other
leisure.
information. I'm not gonna be, we all have a hard copy of your proposal.
Okay, it just has additional info as well.
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, I didn't get this till Saturday.
No, that's fine. I think it might be fair, to say that there are, I mean, at this point, we've got a representative from each of the two companies, and if those representatives want to address the board, I think it would be reasonable and fair to allow them to do so prior to any motion. Is that acceptable to this
I would
board?
be willing to
Is
listen,
that- is
to listen
now-
to proposals, sure.
Yes, and is now an appropriate time?
I think so.
And I don't think we need to be concerned with any time constraints?
No,
No?
that's fine.
Okay. So, Mr. Rizzo, if now would be a good time, if you'd like to address the board, in the absence of maybe distributing any copies. I know we've received probably the bulk of your offer, and it's certainly a very, reasonable offer, but if you wanted to address the board or make any comments.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's understood that
Yep.
we have a,
Could you identify yourself?
oh, I'm sorry,
Yep.
Chuck Rizzo from Rizzo Environmental Services.
Thank you.
We've got it listed here as a 3-year with a 2-year option for the single family and for the condos. We have here a voluntary 65-gallon recycling cart program as well that will be offered at no additional charge. Just residents have to, call in and say, I'd like to have a recycling container, and they'll get one at no charge. So that helps promote more recycling. There's no raise in the pricing. For us, we're looking at, the volume of trash will go down. For us, it makes sense to do that. The other thing we have is chipping services. There does come a point in time where people do like to trim their own trees and put out larger branches and not have to cut them up to, for smaller bundles. So we offer this right now in Grosse Pointe Woods. We have a chipping service that goes around, so we're just offering it to your community as well. It is another enhanced program that not many communities have. Then, of course, the bid rebate program allows the residents to enjoy the first quarter of the contract at no charge. And then you're correct, the township administration fee is $300,000. And our service level is gonna be comparable to what you have today. We try to make sure our trucks are off the streets by the time the kids are out of school. We've got several references that we included as well. And we do a lot of communities that are on either side of you. Currently, Clinton Township, we do Chesterfield, along with 26 other communities. So in total, we're currently serving 28. We are the low bid in St. Clair Shores. we're expecting to get awarded that, you know, within the next few weeks. So that'll be 29 communities.
I don't know if there's any questions that the board might have for either anyone who might speak, or maybe we'd reserve the right to ask them to come back up if we do have questions. I don't know if there's any preference or feeling.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
As far as the brush, right now we have to, you know, if you cut down a tree, you have to cut it, I think in 3-foot bundles or something, or 4-foot or 5-foot, you know, chop it out. Do you pick that up every week?
Yes,
As the
That's included in our yard waste.
Is like just an extra deal.
longer
where-
branches,
Okay,
as long as they're not, you know, more than, you know, the diameter that wouldn't go through a chipper.
so
but I
if you,
mean,
say I cut down a tree and it's a 8-inch trunk, I could put that out and the chipper would handle that, or do I put that out with my regular,
Yeah, if you, we're saying once a month.
Okay.
Whatever would be, you know, and we would have more detailed parameters on that. We would make sure that people are educated.
Yeah, and
But it
probably
wouldn't-
establish a certain diameter that is the limit that you could provide that service. for
Correct,
example.
correct.
Cause 8's pretty big, I don't know that they chip 8.
Well, no, I was
but
just
you
trying
get
to
the
make
idea,
a-
cut it up and then,
I was trying to make,
sure.
It's usually 4 inches.
okay,
That can go through a chip.
okay.
Okay.
And you pick up everything, so if somebody were to, put, you know, they're cleaning out their basement, and put stuff out there, you take everything, sofas, refrigerators,
Our motto is if the resident can put it at the curb, we're gonna take it away.
well, I know that we have, you know, within reason, we have some residents that sometimes abuse that, but,
I mean, if we notice that a resident is a contractor and they're
Right.
putting out stuff related to their business, then we would, you know, obviously say, hey, this is good, you know, a bit too much, but we're gonna take anything, and you can, again, anything that's put out in bulk, we're gonna take away.
all right.
Unless it appears that it was done by a contractor. You know, in that case, it would be pretty obvious.
I mean, sometimes people do work on their homes, I mean.
Correct, that
you
would
know,
be
I
covered,
mean,
yeah,
You take home construction, 2x4s, drywall, that kind of stuff,
yes,
and you can take that to the same trash site and put it in there?
that's correct,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Just have a few questions. Do you also do the Freon removal?
Yeah.
Refrigerators?
Yes.
Is that done on site, or you take them to a different location? So
We
you pick
will-
up bulk items?
Yeah, we'll pick up the bulk items and then take care of that on another site.
Okay. Christmas tree pickup, just wanna know about that.
We collect that right now with the trash,
Okay.
currently, it's not, you know, that, but it ends up at the incinerator. So it's being turned into energy.
Okay. So, and that's also through service, I would imagine that's compost, trash, and recycle, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's the three
In all,
services?
in all bulk pickup, along with now an enhanced tree tripping service and a cart system for recycling.
Okay, so, I think we have a few cleanup days. I know we have a couple cleanup days during the year.
We have the Nautical Coast cleanup, for example,
Right,
where,
so that, I didn't
Right.
see that in the bid
well,
proposal.
and let me, if I might, if I may, Mr. Tominello, in reading your proposal, I think in the second paragraph, it says, "This proposal has been based on the information provided and supplied by the township from the previous request for proposal." So I'm interpreting that to mean, I guess, as a blanket statement, that the terms of the contract that we currently have, you're prepared to honor in this offer, meaning that, and I don't mean to,
Absolutely.
and I don't mean to, you
And
know,
that's
stop
what
you,
I'm
but.
just verifying, I just wanna
Right,
make sure
yep,
that that's
okay,
part of it, right?
Okay.
No, absolutely, and we even have here where underneath additional services included, rear load containerized service on a weekly basis and roll-off services.
Yeah, no, I,
Based on what you have now, we're
I
saying
understand.
no charge.
Because I would have said that first line is, I don't believe is additional service, meaning that I think our current waste hauler, Tringali, is providing those. But the point being that, you know, you're not saying we won't do something that the current provider has agreed to in the contract, is all I was trying to say.
Yes, that's correct. And it,
Well, they
one
should've
thing
been
I didn't
waiting.
put in here was the $3,000 that's set aside too for people that, I mean, by having that blanket statement of what was in the current, you know, the previous RFP, I'm also covering that as well.
So one more thing, I just wanna find out, we had a hardship allocation.
That was
as
the
well.
3,000.
Okay, So, right, and that's identical as well?
Yes.
So the only, you know, the only problem I have, and I understand, Mr. Verkes, where you're going with that second paragraph. But, you know, really, all those items should have been outlined and itemized. Even in the Tringali, you know, I would expect to see them again. I mean, we talk about 3 services, 2 services. There's nowhere on here that talks about recycle, trash, and compost, so I'm assuming that's what they are. So the only thing is, I think that, you know, both the proposals are just assuming that, you know, what we had is what we're gonna get again. It would've just been nice to have those outlined again in each proposal. So that's just my thoughts, and that's why I'm asking the questions, because,
Oh, no, it's fair to ask. I didn't mean to imply that it was inappropriate to ask.
I mean, typically, if you have a proposal, you like to see everything that's included.
Sure.
And not assume, and I'm sure there's some things that I've missed that are probably in the proposal, or the original proposal, that, you know, I would wanna make sure that it's included in these that are submitted here tonight.
Well, yeah, and what we did was, we took the RFP from 3 years ago, looked at over, you know, well, and that's what our pricing's based on. That RFP that you guys did 3.5 years ago, as well as what's currently in the contract. So all that's covered, we just spelled out some highlights and some additionals, is what we did.
Just a question on the, it says an option. Is that our option? Or is it your option? Or,
Your
Oh, for
option,
the years 4 and 5, in
Yeah.
other words? Okay.
that's your option, township's option.
okay. I don't know, I guess, I mean, we haven't talked to Tringali yet, but, I mean, if we were to go this way and, you know, during the end of year 3, we say, hey, Republic, give me a letter that beats their price, but do it after Rizzo's already given us their price of what they want to do the extension at. Does that seem fair to you?
Honestly, and I can tell you, I never FOIA'd the rate, I have not seen the Tringali proposal.
And then
I
why
honestly
didn't this
have
come
not.
in when we sort of set up a deadline at the last meeting for when theirs had to be in? Why was yours 4 days later?
Not 4 days, it's 8
Or
days.
8 days later?
I was out of town, honestly, and I just wanted to get it in before the meeting. So I have not FOIA'd their proposal. I have no idea what their proposal states. I did what I felt I could do, and that's what I put in here. So if you check, I don't think anyone's FOIA'd. that
Well, it's
I'm-
available online, so we would never be able to.
Oh, I didn't even look at it online, honestly.
Okay.
With all due respect, you know, that was the problem with this whole process, which I
I'm not
mentioned at the
disagreeing.
last meeting. And I said this was gonna happen, and I don't blame Mr. Rizzo, even if he looked at this and came in underneath it. That was this board, what this board wanted to do.
Sure.
I sat here at that meeting and said, let's do a proposal, let's do it sealed, let's make it fair. This board chose not to do it that way. So I don't blame Mr. Rizzo for anything.
I blame the 8 days,
Or will I hold him
because at the
responsible?
28th meeting, the question came up from the floor, take bids. Mr. Verkest himself stated, anybody can submit a bid at any time.
Right.
And at that time, with everybody in the audience, we said we wanted that proposal by the 18th to review for the 25th meeting. And, you know, so we received from Tringali, it was dated, received at the clerk's office on the 14th of February. Then all of a sudden, Saturday morning, I get up, check my email, I got a proposal. Doesn't sit well with me, doesn't pass the sniff test, I'm sorry.
Now, I know we want to give a chance for each person to speak, and again, I think if there was a reason to redirect or to ask someone to come back forward, does this board have a problem if we were to invite someone else back
Everybody
up?
talk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If there are other questions for Mr. Rizzo, I think it'd be appropriate. If not, if we offered an opportunity for someone else to speak, we might ask you to come back up if that would be okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
And this board, at the end of the day, this board caused this mess right now. If we would've done a sealed bid, everybody puts their bids in, whoever it is, Waste Management, Rizzo, Tringali, whatever, ABC Sanitation, then it makes the process fair for everybody. We open the bids and then there's no allegations as to, somebody coming in under the gun or
Yeah.
whatever. And I do-
Dominic Tringali, you know me,
I have
right?
a question for
Okay.
Mr. Tringali.
May I
Have you had
speak?
the opportunity to review anything that was submitted by Rizzo?
Well, we do everything that Rizzo says he wants to do. Well, I was just saying, I thought we bid for 3 years, and we had an option with you had the opportunity to extend the bid. I'm not asking you to go out and rebid, I'm asking for that 2-year extension. If you truly want to go out and rebid it, then do it. But, everybody, you throw something at the wall and let's see what sticks. And that's the way it seems like Mr. Rizzo operates. And of course, like I work over in the soccer communities where we do 8 communities, and they do one. Well, the one that they do is 16% more than what I charge the other 8 communities. Well, he could lower his price over there and give them some free service too. But I don't want to be getting into this contest here. Let's just talk about Harrison. I've done the job, we do a good job, we don't have any complaints, and, we like to continue. I'm a resident in the city, and I just, I did everything that you asked, and I will continue. That's all I have to say. Like, if I could promise to do it for free, I would. If that would help me get the job, but I can't do it.
We'll take it.
I can't do it. Like, I look at my bills and in 2010, I paid $770,000 for fuel. Last year, I paid $995,000 for fuel. And our dump in 2010 is about the same as it was this year because the burner opened up and started taking trash and they lowered their price. And now we just got another increase at the burner. The burner's going up. I don't know what the burner's gonna be next year, but when that burner is jammed, you can't dump there. It's just, they say, we're closed. You can't bring it here. Go someplace else. So, you can't just predict what it's gonna cost. And as far as, administration fee, I don't know, can I give you money to pay the bills or what? Or throw that into there, like $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could do that? In
Absolutely.
other words, you're already sending out a water bill and this number goes on it. How could you get $100,000? I'll build it for you.
Right, I
My
think in
office
response
bill.
to that question, I don't think it's a function of whether or not, I don't think there's something about it, because I'd kind of asked the question.
It was
is that
bid both ways.
Right,
During the
Yeah.
original process, it was bid both ways.
Right.
Whether or not the township would do the billing or whether the
waste hauler.
trash hauler would do it, so.
right. But the issue of saying that can someone provide a cash payment, I think the question is it legal? It's legal. I mean, there's
I don't know, okay. Well, I don't have much to say. Go ahead, Bob.
Well,
I'm a little upset.
Don't be upset.
No.
I'm Bob Z with Tringali Sanitation. We're a real family business here, okay? We don't have people behind us backing us and private equity companies throwing money all over the place. We went through this process. We did it ethically, legally, and morally. And we won the job because some of you guys were on the board from the beginning. And then at the 11th hour, Friday at 4 o'clock, all of a sudden, well, our numbers are already exposed. I mean, it's easy, okay, to undercut our numbers. And believe me, someone's seen our numbers, and we knew it was gonna happen. We did this job honestly, ethically, and morally. And the golden rule, at the end of the day, it's just because we're all having hardships, but we still lower the rate for you guys. We care, He lives in this township. Denise Tringali lives in the township. I used to live in the township. We support the township. And you can only go so far, I mean, when it sounds too good to be true, I remember Bernie Madoff said, well, wow, Bob, all these good things, and look what happened. So, he's been doing this 52 years. We only have 9 cities. We don't have 30 cities. and you don't get 30 cities in 2 years unless you're buying cities or acquiring cities. I don't mean,
No, understood. If I could ask, I know one of the questions was, in your proposal, you hadn't outlined all the services. When we received your proposal, I had interpreted that since you're already under contract, and if we take no action, that you're under contract for a 5-year period, I think just to state publicly, you'd obviously continue to serve the same way that you have, provide all the services that you had for the last 3 years in whatever.
of course, that's correct.
Okay.
And we have provided recycle bins. We did that at the beginning of the contract. And we do the chipping, we do the bulk. You don't find many freezers or refrigerators out there anymore because the scrap men come out and get it. So there's not much to do with the bulk anymore, so it's not really a extra service.
They're very bold.
Yeah, they are.
I was actually putting my trash out and had somebody like rummaging through my stuff while I was putting it out last Wednesday.
You know,
I guess I didn't get there in time.
Yeah. So it's just the golden rule. Ethically, we've taken care of you guys morally, service-wise, price-wise. We were lowest bidder from the beginning. But
you know, he could have gave you those numbers 5 years ago, but he didn't. You know, at that time, or 3 years ago. It seems like hindsight's pretty good. All right, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
can't figure one.
Yep. Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Tringali or Mr. Z? No? I mean, if you do, I'm sure we could ask him.
No, I'm I'm trying to remember what, Mr. Rizzo, what was your quote 3 years ago? It was in the ballpark, because I remember.
Yeah, it was very
We gave it to
close.
Mr. Tringali because he was a resident. That was the.
It was,
that
it was, I wanna say
That
our
was
price
the
was
low bid.
lower.
That wasn't the thing.
But it was-
I sat on that committee
It was only a couple
through
dollars.
every meeting, and yes, it did come down to those two
Yeah, it was like a couple
colors. It was
dollars.
between them.
Yeah,
And
they
it
were,
was
they were, yeah,
a
they
number
were the
of
two
things
most
Yeah, it was a
competitive.
couple dollars.
Combined that, would us.
We seemed to catch them at 5 years. They were lower at 3, and I think that's why it
Okay.
ended up with a 3 and 2.
Okay.
So,
Because you were much higher, right? It was negligible. It was like.
Right,
2 or 3
No, and
dollars
I'm-
difference.
Rizzo did submit a competitive bid. I don't think it was the low bid, but it was very close. It was, depending on how you looked at it, so I think that.
I'll go look at that tomorrow.
and I'm not here to slander Mr. Tringali. Like I feel like I got slandered a little bit. We're just here to provide a good service. I've got some additional partners because banking today is tough. I'm still the largest shareholder in my company. I'm the CEO, I'm the president. My dad's still involved. He was the first guy to organize Clinton Township almost 50 years ago. So we're a family business. My brother's the operations manager. My dad's there, he's the vice president, I'm the CEO president. So, I mean, we're a real family business as well, ethically. We try to do everything compliant-wise. We've got almost 30 cities. We've been more aggressive than Tringali has been, but it doesn't mean we provide a better service. I think Tringali provides a good service. I think we would provide the same kind of service you've been getting. So I just wanted to state that. I usually don't slander our competitors, and I felt like that happened here a little bit, and we just gave you a good price. I didn't just beat his proposal. We completely blew it out of the water. We're saving the township a lot of money, and I knew I had to do that. That's why I didn't even look at his proposal, because I knew I had to go to my bare minimum to try to save the township enough money to convince them to switch. Our pricing is well beyond 10% savings, with an additional enhancement to the residents and the township. So it's really the board's decision. If you would want to extend with Tringali, we're here to bid in 2 years from now. If you want to save a ton of money today, we're here for you. And I really appreciate your time and looking at a proposal. And if you do either of the three, go out to bid, take our pricing or Mr. Tringali's, I understand it's a tough decision. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm not here to slander anybody. I just, we do things a certain way. And when I smell something funny, I just say it. It's just, we came in here, we did the process, we went through the whole process. And I'm not here to slander anybody. I'm here to do a good job for the township, and that's what we're here for. And we're gonna do it morally and ethically. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that both companies, Tringali and Rizzo, are gonna provide good service.
Well, I don't have
My-
any reason to suspect that Rizzo
No,
would
they-
provide poor service. I
No,
I
they
know
both-
Tringali has done
Yeah, they're both
a
gonna
good job. I
provide
think-
good service,
Yeah, I
but
think we've been happy with
my
that.
concern is that we got one bid, and I think Adam already brought this up. We got one bid on the 14th, we got another bid on the 22nd. That being said, and we know why that may have happened, Rizzo is offering basically 4 key elements that Tringali hasn't really brought up a whole lot, because they probably just found out about this 15 minutes before they got into the meeting. So, do we think it would be prudent to at least provide Tringali an opportunity to look at what Rizzo's offering and, to be fair to both companies and offer them an opportunity?
So let me respond to that
It's
if I
kind of
may. There's a tricky thing here, because what we've got, first and foremost, is we've got a 5-year contract with a supplier.
Right.
Right? Number one. I mean, if I can kind of summarize. Number two, after 3 years, we have the right to opt out, and the purpose of that clause, it's really a 5-year contract, but it wasn't 3 years with an option to extend to 2, it was a 5-year contract.
Okay.
But we added a clause that said if after 3 years, if we're unhappy, if you will, for whatever reason, we could opt out, so that we're not stuck for 5. So we'll sign a 5-year contract, but we could get out. But in either case, the clause doesn't say we have to meet certain criteria to get out. So we've reached a point where we're almost at 3 years, and we could, if we chose to, opt out of this contract. The purpose of that clause was if we were receiving poor service or were unhappy in any way.
Which we're not.
It's important to state that we've had no issues with billing. I would say, in terms of the issues that come to the supervisor's office, Tringali has been responsive if there's been a customer concern. And I would say the resident concerns are relatively minimal, and I believe they've provided good service. I know the subject of garbage juice came up. I really don't hear about garbage juice. So I believe that we've received a good level of service. And again, that's not identifying one over another. We were approached to say perhaps you should go out, get some competitive prices. There's been some changes in costs, and perhaps there's savings to be had. And on its face, it seemed like a good idea. We were approached then by Tringali, who said, hey, we've done a good job. Before you have to go out and ask us to rebid this, we did bid it for 5 years. We got it competitively. Let's see if we can sharpen our pencil and save you some money. And I believe that when they submitted their quote, their proposal, they did just that. I think they did what they said they would do. They said, hey, we can take a look. We do believe there are some savings. I know Mr. Z had explained to me that the volume of waste that they move seems to have come down. So they have experienced some areas where they thought there would be some savings, and they gave us an honest proposal that was basically the same as what we asked everyone to quote 3 years ago, but with some reduced numbers and some genuine savings. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings. And when I heard about the numbers, I said, well, this is good news. And that's what we were asked to consider, and that's what this board approved to do. I don't think any of us, I can't say myself anyways, I can't say how the other board members feel, but I don't know that any of us were surprised to see that someone else offered a proposal to the township. In response to your question, I think we have to be a little cautious as to whether we say, well, hey, I mean, in other words, we're not buying a used car here. I think we're dealing with, two legitimate companies that provide, a level of service. Again, I can't speak to Rizzo's service, but I don't have any reason to believe that they provide us poor service. I don't think service is the issue, but we're dealing with some decent companies. If we get into a situation of asking each member to go back and forth, and I don't know that that's ethical, which I think is part of the issue that some board members might have with how we got to where we are.
Right.
But what we have done is we've considered looking at, basically, for lack of a better word, rebidding or asking for bids, and we had a good supplier with a good relationship approach us and say, before you do that, will you give us a chance to take a look and see if it's even worth your trouble? Maybe we can save you some funds. There's no loss for us in accepting that. So we have two proposals before us. We have a proposal that saves us money and a proposal that saves us more money, in essence, and has some really interesting incentives. But in order for us to exercise that, we have to take a look at the person who won the first bid fairly, and we kind of have to treat them in a way that could be kind of discriminatory and sort of, if I may, sort of treat them in a way that I don't know that I'd want to be treated if I entered into a 5-year contract with someone. But clearly, the offer from Rizzo is a very, very generous, a very, very competitive offer. I think some of us had discussed, we're not interested in changing service providers for $1. And while the annual rate is competitive or very close, it's a little under, but you could imagine that might happen. Certainly, there's some incentives in there that are very attractive. That's why this board is probably stuck with a difficult decision tonight.
And this is,
I appreciate everything you're saying, Ken.
Yep.
But we're still making our decision based on two proposals, one that came in on the 14th, one that came in on the 22nd. One's very aggressive, and one seems to be comparable to what we are currently paying. So I'm not saying that one is, well, it just seems to me that all things being equal, if we got two bids in here and they're both dated the 14th, then we'd be looking at a whole different set of cards. But now we're looking at two different bids that are dated differently, and the Tringalis don't have the opportunity to react to what the Rizzos had put together. And I understand what you're saying, but we're still making our decision based on these two proposals. So
Hold on.
it kind of turns into a little bit of a,
Well, I mean, Mr. Prado, what happened was there was a motion by the board to put it out for bid. Okay, it was seconded. During the discussion, Mr. Tringali came up and asked if he could put a new proposal in. The question to me at the time was, is there any problem with that process? I said, there's no problem as long as Mr. Tringali acknowledges that he's gonna put his bid out there and it could be beat.
and I remember that.
Right.
So, really, I guess to go along with what I'd call the Brado proposal, turnaround would be fair play. Nothing wrong or unethical about asking Tringali to match the Rizzo proposal. It's $500,000.
It's not illegal. It's not illegal. There's nothing criminal about it.
$500,000 savings over the next 3 years, seems like to me, to the community. So if you, taking on what your question is, can you do that? Absolutely. Ask them to
That's
match
my
the
question.
proposal.
I think at the 2 meetings ago, the way we left it was, we have a contract with somebody, we're gonna see if they can work within their contract to bring something back more attractive.
Right.
Rizzo took it upon themselves to submit something when we weren't accepting bids, we weren't doing a bidding process, they gave us something, it's very attractive. But, and that sort of supports the thought that, you know what, maybe prices have come down. If we're gonna look at something other than what is our current contract, then I'm not comfortable saying, well, there's only two contractors, because I know there's more than two. Set it out for bid.
Right.
And you know what, Rizzo took the same chance that Tringali did by putting something on paper. And Darren, I see you moving, and I understand what you're, what
Adam,
you said it
Adam,
at the
you
last
talk
meeting.
about ethics and discrimination and things like this. This board caused this problem. And I will not sit here.
how do we have a
I will not
problem?
sit here. We sat here a month ago and said, let's put it out for an RFP. And I'm not trying to be discriminatory or anything against everybody, but we're sitting here tonight now trying to push this contract to Tringali, which is fine if that's what you want to do, then make that motion. We brought all of these items up a month ago. Put it, sealed bid. No, Mr. York, we want to just have one bidder. Once you put the bid in, board members, somebody else is going to come in. Mr. Huth even made a ruling on that. So I don't even think we should be talking about right now any discrimination or somebody else putting in another bid. Of course you knew somebody was going to put in a bid. And as far as this nonsense about, we had a 3-year contract with a 2-year option. And if we go back, and if we go back and look at the video,
We had a 5-year
that's the way it was
contract with
presented.
an opt-out
That is
after
the
3
way that it was presented to this board, was a 3-year with a 2-year option.
No.
It was a
And we'll go
5-year.
look at the video, we'll go look at the video
We'll look at the
tomorrow.
contract. The
We'll go look
contract
at the
says a
video.
5-year contract.
Yeah. It's clearly a 5-year
Well, let
contract.
me, if people want to give it to Tringali, then make a motion and give it to Tringali. I cannot, as a consumer, and I'll just take my treasurer hat off here, I'm a homeowner in this community. And if I have two bills for the same service, and the one is saying, Mr. York, I'm gonna save you, $40 or even on the surface, $3 and then $9 and $16, not a lot of money, negligible to me. But then when you bring in these other services, and then I'm not gonna pay for a quarter, as a consumer and as a homeowner, that would be my choice.
Sure.
Hands down.
But if you were,
Hands down,
let's say
period.
if you were gonna get cable services and there was 4 companies that did it, would you only take the 2 and not call the other 2? That's what I'm saying. And if we're gonna do a bidding process, let's do it. We weren't trying to do a bidding process before.
but-
That's the
Rizzo
approach.
was,
But my
hold
problem,
on,
Adam,
Jared.
my problem, Adam,
Mr.
is
York,
very simple.
Mr. York.
Was very simple. I wanted to do that
No,
process
I
with
underst-
everybody
I understand that.
a month ago, and nobody wanted to do that.
I totally get that you did bring it up. I will give you all the credit for bringing it up 2 meetings ago. What I'm saying is right now, we didn't ask for Rizzo to give us a price. They took it upon themselves to do it.
That's my point.
And because at that time when we were sitting at that meeting, it was completely hypothetical whether or not there was any savings. Because our contract that we had for 3 years said, there might be a little bit because of the tonnage coming down, but, we didn't know that. Now we know that because of what they put on paper. And they took it upon themselves to do that. So if we're saying, you know what, there's savings, and I agree, as a consumer, there's savings there.
Right.
So put it out to bid.
And I would like to just address at least one thing. This board, I hope we all understand, first and foremost, we're passionate because we want to do the right thing. But second of
And
all.
this is a hard thing.
I understand. But second of all, let's make sure we all understand, we don't have a problem.
No.
We signed a contract in
We have
good
a
faith
quandary.
through a competitive bidding process, agreeing to rates for trash collection. We now know that for the next 2 to 5 years, we have the opportunity to pay less for trash collection. That's not a problem.
Right.
That's a good thing. So let's make sure that we understand that. So regardless of what this board decides to do, all of the residents are gonna save money as we move forward. I don't know that anybody here is confused on the 2 proposals, so if we might look at this from a logical perspective. We have reason to believe that Rizzo would provide good service. We have no reason to believe otherwise. We know for certain Tringali has provided good service. We know that Tringali has been the low quoter, and they've come back and offered additional incentives, lower rates. We know Rizzo has made a proposal that is very, very competitive, that has some additional incentives in there that really make you have to give it an honest second look. So at a bare minimum, we can conclude that there are savings to be had in our waste hauler service. I think the issue is whether or not it's fair to consider both proposals as equal in terms of the way that they came in and how they were procured. And that's what this board has to struggle with. But obviously, the Rizzo proposal is a very, very aggressive proposal, and I can't argue with Mr. York's position that it has some significant, financial incentives. Mr. Huth?
I just want to say what the contract specifically says on term, because it sounds like there's a little bit of confusion. Harrison Township, at its sole option, may place this contract for waste hauling and related services out to bid to begin May 1, 2013. Okay, so
Right,
it's,
right. So we have the option to do it.
yeah,
Any
there's no other reason, just for what, if you decide to put it out for bid, that's what the contract says we can do.
Understood. And what I had stated was, I think the way that clause came to be was a concern, what if we're disappointed? But I had said, we don't have to have a reason in order to change carriers. And that contract was signed that way. So we're not fearful, say, for example, that Tringali might say, no, you can't do that because that's contrary to the contract. The contract is very clear. This board has the right, if we choose, not to continue after 3 years for any reason.
Right.
I was just merely saying the discussion at the time was driven by a concern of service or that sort of thing.
I think it might be a good idea to go out for bid.
Mr. Chairman, just one question I had, the $300,000 administrative fee, we don't need that for the township. I'd have rather seen that divided over 3 years and give that to the residents.
Right, it would have brought the
If
bill.
there's $300,000 to give to the township, for what? We're looking at how do we save the consumer money, not how do we put $300,000 in the treasury. I'd have rather seen that, okay, I can take $100,000 per year for each year, rather than administrative, and lower that fee even more.
It works out to like $12.50 a year per resident.
About $3 a quarter, roughly.
Well, as a board, we can do that. The cash comes to us, we can say we're gonna give it back to the residents.
I don't know, I think, again, like I said, I think maybe we just need to go out for bid, and maybe
You should, if you consider that, just because someone's gonna need a month to ramp up, I think they should go out using the same bid document that we used before. There's only 5 or 6 haulers. Get that same document to those 5 or 6 haulers that bid on these contracts in Metro Detroit, and get these responses due by April 1, so they have a month to get ready to do the job.
Well, certainly the options before the board at this point, it would appear, would be to accept either proposal or to go out for bid.
See, I don't think taking Rizzo's is an option.
Well,
I just, without
Yeah.
without a bid, it's unsolicited. I mean,
Yep.
it wasn't like,
I understand, and I respect that position. Again, I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that we're not concerned that they're not legitimate, and we're not concerned, clearly, it's a very competitive bid. If you don't have a contract, you'd like to acquire it, you might make an aggressive pass for it. That's what I read. I wouldn't anticipate that at the end of this 3-year contract, I'm gonna get maybe some of the same incentives. I mean, I don't wanna speak for any one supplier, but I think it's fair to say that sometimes, I know we've experienced that with some healthcare companies.
Yep.
When we've offered to move a number of employees from one company to another, that initial first-year premium is oftentimes very attractive, regardless of the service of the healthcare. It could be that in successive years, the rates that you might experience in that second year a large rate. I certainly don't want to speak for either of these companies, but certainly I wouldn't be amazed if a company were to use as a sales tactic an attractive incentive to change contracts. And I'm not, that's not unique, I don't think, to any one business. I think that's what we're looking at here. If I were to look at maybe some of those incentives differently, and I look at the base rate for the service, I would see those numbers being more in line. I guess if it wasn't for the initial surge or the lump sum in this proposal, I would look at these two proposals and I'd say, well, we got a proposal from Tringali, and we got one that's a little bit under, but it tells us that Tringali's kind of in the same lines in terms of the service that they're providing. The numbers are pretty competitive. We're talking about dollars per year that each resident would save, and while that's significant, the point is, I think it's that lump sum that makes these two different. So the question in my mind is that lump sum an incentive for us to consider making a change?
Plus the free quarter.
Right.
The other residents get a free quarter.
Understood, it's a
As
lump,
well,
you're right,
yeah.
and that is, so the lump sum might be greater than 300,000, but the point is, it is a lump sum. So there's a carrot there to say, hey, will you switch? And once you establish that relationship. It wouldn't, I know the proposal is for 3 years, and I know we've compared the two at 3 years. We do have a contract. One option before us, obviously, is to just exercise the 2 years at the reduced rate 2 years from now, or a little less than 2 years, because I think we're late. If we were going to legitimately go out for a bid, I don't think we would wait till this point to submit bids. So I think it could be as much as a month behind in the process. So in less than 2 years, if we were to remain with Tringali, we'd be in a position to be able to take a look at this and go through that bid process the way we'd originally planned. I don't know if we get bids by April 1, if we really have enough time to be able to have a contract in place and another hauler up and running by May 1. I mean, I can't speak for those waste haulers. I don't know if that's a concern that you'd have, Mr. Hoot.
Well, one way to handle that may be just to ask the Tringali organization if they would agree to extend to June 1, to get that they haul for an extra month, to give you an opportunity to do that.
I think, I think in the absence of that, it would be difficult to go through a full bid process. Not impossible, but it would be a very tight time frame to be able to say by April 1, we receive bids, we have a chance to take a look at them, for the board to do it, sign a contract, and have another hauler up and running by May 1. I don't know.
I think there's a significant difference between these two proposals, and it's not fair to the residents if we don't make a decision to go out for bid. And it's not fair to these two suppliers. I mean, Tringali already has the business. They did not have the opportunity to, I guess, bid on an even playing field. That all being said, at least moving forward, this would provide an opportunity for them to all bid on an even playing field. And we all know that's what Darren asked for in the first place, but this is a pretty significant difference.
It's huge.
So, it's, I think in all fairness to the residents, we need to make a decision to go out to bid. I really do.
Any other discussion?
In
If
all
we-
fairness, I would say that Mr. Rizzo was here a month ago.
Oh, there's no
You know,
question,
I
right?
mean,
Clearly,
we
he's-
haven't mentioned that, but Mr. Rizzo was here a month ago when we discussed this in the first place.
Sure.
You know.
Oh, I just have one thing to say, you know. When you put out the bid specs, we're gonna answer the specs. I'm not gonna give you 19 different alternative proposals, like, well, if I'm gonna do this, but on top of that, I'll do this, this, and this, and this. This is just, you know, it confuses everything. You know, like, I'm gonna give you this, and if you do that, I'll give you this, and then we're gonna give free service, and then we're gonna donate to the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. The bid specs, you know, in other words, I've seen bids where they've turned in a bid and turned in 6 alternate bids. And I say to myself, well, how can that be? Now, I'm not slandering Rizzo, but this is how their technique is, just mucky up the water, and everything gets very confusing. You know, then you don't know which bid you want to look at. And that's exactly what's going on right now.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Yep, thank you.
It's on the agenda to vote for today for us. It's not on the agenda to vote for Rizzo, in due respect.
Understood.
The motion was to reduce cost. That's what it was. I mean, what we have to face is, are we gonna opt out of the contract or not? You know, I mean, we said it before too, service is worth something, has a value to it. It's like anything we contract with. Do we automatically just say we're gonna take the low price? Is that what we're gonna do? In other words, if somebody comes in and says, I'm gonna do you, city attorney for you for $90 an hour, do we just say, goodbye, Rob, you know, we don't need you? You have to put a value on, you know, what has been going on for the last 3 years.
Yep, there's no doubt about that, and as I say, I think we've made it clear that the service that Tringali has provided and the voluntary willingness to come in and offer reduced rates, you know, can't be ignored.
I mean, if we were to exercise, you know, if we didn't have that 3-year option, we would be paying significantly more.
Sure.
Right?
And there's no doubt about it. I mean, we keep saying savings, but there's no incentive to lower that cost. We'd be paying what?
About 15, well, it's this.
100,
yeah.
we'd be paying 173 next year and 180 the following year.
Yeah, another 228,000.
Right. I mean,
Right.
I didn't see anybody coming in here saying, oh, by the way, we're just gonna cut your costs without any pressure. You know, let's face it, Mr. Rizzo came in, said, hey, I can cut your costs. That's what forced this whole process in the first place. And what, I have nothing against Tringali at all. I just keep saying that. I know it's just a money issue, plain and simple. And it's a hard decision because we do have a relationship.
That was a
And
low
it's hard-
bid
and it's hard,
3 years
you
ago.
know, it's hard for me to sit here and say, you know, the Rizzo bid, just because we do have a relationship with you guys. I know you guys, and you know, you've done a good job. But you
Okay.
can't, if you're buying an iPod, and maybe I see it differently.
I understand,
Gar-
but that was
garbage
a
to
low
me-
bid 3 years
gar-
ago.
gar- Garbage to me, I used to have Waste Management.
Eh.
I saved a lot of money when you guys came in. I
Okay.
saved a couple, probably $250 a year by, when we went to the single waste hauler. But, there, in my mind, other than the price, there's no difference between ABC company, DEF company, or Waste Management, or Rizzo, or Tringali.
Yeah,
or-
there's a
or
difference.
City, or whoever. The truck pulls up my house, as long as there's no garbage juice coming out of it, they throw my trash in the thing and they haul it off.
You're easy to make happy. But that bid that you're talking about, it was low bid.
It was.
Even though you would be paying more. And, it's low bid. It was low bid. And you were saying, well, the contract's up and the like. So I agreed, we can look at it. Things are bad. I understand that. And that's what we did. But, and then miraculously, Mr. Rizzo comes in the door, and this is the part they're saying. They start throwing numbers around, and this is what mucks up the whole contract. I don't know if you would call that a contractual interference or what. But we had 5-year contract going. In the beginning, it went 3 with a 2-year option, but someone walks in the door and say, yeah, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. Yeah, that messes up everything. How do you think it makes me feel as a contractor wanting to bid on this job again? I really don't. I would feel like, what's the point? Like where the hell is your working relationship that you had? Is it gone or is it not worth nothing? That's all I can say. I live here. I like it here. And I do the best we can, and that's how we work.
But the original motion, when this came originally to us, was approval to send a letter to waste haulers to solicit bids, to solicit information on pricing. And what happened was, the board tried to steer the contract to Tringali, cut everybody else out, and let you guys make a bid. That's what the board
I wish
voted
I
on
would've
that
got the
night.
memo on that one.
That's what the board voted on that
But we
night.
had a contract. We weren't trying to steer it anyplace. We had an existing contract. We weren't trying to steer the contract to nobody else. It was like, he was the contractor of record.
A month
It was,
ago-
can he lower the price? Can he do anything for us?
A month
That's
ago-
what the motion was.
A month ago, we should have just sent this out to bid, and we wouldn't be sitting here for an hour tonight even discussing this. We would have had all sealed bids, there'd have been no charges of, people discriminating or getting something 3 or 4 days or someone taking a peek. None of this would have occurred had we just gone out, the original motion to submit letters for a closed bid. And we would have come in here and everybody would have submitted it by whatever, February 15th.
Well,
Everybody would've had a fair
let me
shot.
suggest to you, in the next contract, you put in there a little clause saying that if you intend to cancel, you should give a 180-day written notice, either party. And, that would clear it all up. It's not in the contract. I looked. And it should have been, but it wasn't. It
All
was
of our other
omitted. It
contracts
should
have
have
that.
been in there that if you don't intend to extend, that you should send me a letter stating that you're gonna terminate or go out for bid. And it's not there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here doing this. Thank you.
I don't know how much more productive it is to
Yeah,
have
we're
the
just
contractors
going around
keep
in a
getting up
circle,
here.
yeah.
and I mean,
Yeah, but I know Mr. Tringali had been up several times. If Mr. Rizzo wants to address the board, I think it would be, it's fair to allow him to speak if you'd like to. But I think we have to maybe reach a point, unless there's something new after this comment, that, we've gotta move along. Sorry, sir.
No, the only thing I was gonna suggest is just, extending the contract to Mr. Tringali possibly for 6 months, so you don't have the pressure that you have. Just a suggestion, because that seems to be a big issue, and, I've seen that happen, to where they'll do a 3-month or a 6-month or something like that, so that you guys don't feel like you have that kind of pressure constraint. And, we've had jobs that we've done too for several years, and contractors come in there and they push things out to bid. It just happened to us in Grosse Pointe Woods. So it is something that happens in our business, from time to time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go out on a limb here, and I know everybody's sort of hard to get a read where everybody's sitting right now. Do we want to go out to bid? Does somebody want to make a motion for Tringali?
Well, actually,
Because, I mean, I want to go out to bid. I think I've made myself clear. I'm gonna,
I think so.
make a motion based on purely finance for the other company. So I guess I'll ask, do you want to extend your contract 3 months? So we can go out for a bid?
I didn't think this motion was to go out for bid. I thought this was to accept our 2-year agreement. I mean, like you said, 4 days later, someone knows what your numbers are. It's easy to throw that in there. You don't know if you go out with sealed bids later that this number is gonna come in as low as they're projecting. You don't know that. It might hurt you. I think we did the ethically thing. We did the good job. We did the right thing. And then, you know, someone's trying to say, put a carrot, you know, like monkey up the waters, like Dominic said. I mean, that's all that is. He stirred up a process. We came in here and we just wanted to do our job. We lowered the rates. We always followed all the rules and regulations. And then we try to give you a little bit more savings. We wanted to extend this bid. I mean, every bid we go to, when you get a 3-year, you always get the extension on it. And then we figured out a way. Dominic said to me, Bob, can we do something? Well, we said, the trash has dropped. The prices haven't dropped, the trash has dropped.
You mentioned the volume.
Yes, so, I mean, realistically and ethically, we deserve the job. I mean, any number looks, like they said, go to Mr. Huth, okay, we got an attorney for $80 now, see ya. I mean, what kind of relationship did we build here? And this hasn't been 3 years, actually. I lived in the city about 18 years ago, and I started on this contract back then with Sherry Murphy and Ball, this person, and you know, Michelle Ballard and all these people many years ago. And we were doing subscription in the city for many years. And there was a time when Rizzo did come to me and say, Bob, his dad came to me and said, you want to buy these customers out of Harrison Township? And I says, no, I don't buy business. We earn it. And I think the relationship we have, you know, is it's solid, it's secure. Just because you see a piece of paper and a lot of promises, I could come back tomorrow with a piece of paper and promises, but we don't operate like that. Just because certain people do things one way, we're not going to do it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the comments that was made was to possibly extend this contract for a period of time, such as 6 months, something like that. I want to make sure the board understands we have the opportunity to extend the contract for about 2 years and go through that competitive process like we had originally planned. And I think the board would be comfortable with that, again, if there wasn't, and I think the issue that makes this difficult is because we have a very, very attractive offer. And so, you know, I mean, if in fact the incentive to try to attract business is to, you know, maybe toss out a carrot, and I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, but from other businesses I've been involved in, I think sometimes from a sales perspective, if you're in a service business, sometimes you know, launch an incentive. I don't know if that opportunity for savings exists 2 years down the road, but I think I initially approached this whole thing saying we went out for a 5-year bid. We got a 5-year bid. We have a chance after 3 years. Someone came to us and said, I think we can save you money. So our contractor that's given us good service and given us no reason to change said, we can offer you some savings. They voluntarily came back and offered those savings. We have, one of the options is to just continue with the contract and by changing nothing, save about $230,000 for the residents. And then in less than 2 years, go through that competitive process and allow everybody the chance to do that in advance, the way we planned on it 5 years ago, without really treating any supplier in any unethical way or any way in which we believe is, you know, manipulative. On the other hand, there's clearly from the 2 suppliers we've talked to, there's an opportunity for some savings that we can see. So the other option is to go out and try to get competitive bids.
If somebody wants to do Tringali, make a motion and see if you have the vote. We're just saying the same thing
Yep,
over
well,
and
those-
over.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but
I think
I
we all
think-
know everybody's position.
Sure.
We wanna get your position, you think it's a 5-year contract, so make a motion. If there's a second, it is what it is.
Well, I
Let's
think
just
I-
take a vote.
I sort of think it's the other way around. If somebody
mean-
wants to go out for a bid, there's gotta be a this
I'll
is the
make a motion-
contract we have.
Well, I'm trying to find out if we're gonna get a 3-month extension on our current contract, and I haven't heard a yes or no. Cause I was gonna make that part of my motion. I don't know if I have the vote to do that or not. I don't,
Six month, we would do that.
It's the worst 6 months of the year.
Yeah, you're gonna pay, you're gonna pay.
yeah, then we're at what rate? Are we moving up to the 180 rate, or are we, yeah, see, we needed to do
We
this.
can't lower the rate. I mean, if we're gonna give them 6 months, we're gonna pay the
Well, I'm not gonna
prevailing
pay
rate.
173 for 6 months.
Well, then, what you're asking for.
Right, you're asking for an
I would make a
extension
motion,
on
I would make a motion to go out for bid for waste management services for Harrison Township. Bids due in 1 month.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support, board members?
I'll support that.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Brado. So to go for a competitive bid, one of the things I think that needs to be a part of that is if we're gonna talk about that, I think the decision would need to be a part of the motion for what duration that competitive bid
Well, I
is.
think a 3-year with a 2-year kick is good. I mean, I think, I mean,
We're gonna go for a 3-year, I don't want no opt-out provisions. If we're gonna do
then
bidding,
just do a 3-year
I don't
contract.
want no more opt-out
Then do
provisions.
Then do a
and go
3-year
through this
contract.
crap again.
I think a 3-year contract is fair. Things change in the marketplace, whether it's for the vendor or for the township. You know, sometimes prices go up, sometimes they go down.
Sure.
You know,
Maybe we can ask, I know, Mr. Huth, you deal with other municipalities. Do you have an opinion, or do you see a general trend on the duration of these types of contracts? Is 3 years typical or atypical?
3 years, I think the last one that I saw was, presented, same 3 years, and then there was options in there, and the community has the right to exercise the option, so maybe that's, I'm hearing what Mr. Switowski's saying, I don't wanna be bound. Why not give yourself the option? If you wanna do it, fine, but it's not the hauler's right, so you say
Right.
3 years, they can present another term.
see, the way I look at that is, I'm getting a 3-year guarantee, really a 5-year guarantee. So if the prices actually do go up, I have a 2-year option. I've already hedged a bet for the citizens that I'm paying X amount of dollars even if the prices go up. I'm buying a future option essentially.
Correct.
And I can't lose because as the community, because at 3 years, if the prices are up, I exercise my option. If they go down, then I can go and say, hey, look, just like we are now, and get a discount.
I agree.
For the record, I'm voting this way because I want these waste haulers all have an even playing field.
I agree.
Understood.
That's the reason why I'm
Well,
doing
and
this.
that's why you go out to bid, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the purpose.
Right.
So
So the point, the answer to the question that I had asked is you've seen 3, but with basically similar to the structure that we have, and I think Mr. York spoke to that point, saying that if you look at 5 and you have the opt-out for whatever reason at 3, that's what's best for the township. If there were some bizarre, unforeseen change in various rates or costs or licenses, and new contracts were being bid in the 180 to 190 range annually, and we were locked in at 170, we'd say, hey, great, let's exercise.
Absolutely.
Right. So I might ask then, if that's how you feel, I think you've made that clear, and based on that, would you maybe restate or modify your motion to include whatever you're proposing?
Well, just a 3-year with the 2-year option. I mean,
Kind of similar to the way our current contract is structured, Mr. Huth?
well, I think we're happy with our current contract. I mean, the way the RFP was and the way the current contract is.
Yep.
I don't think that, I mean, if you want to throw, I didn't even, like I said, I'm not in the waste hauling business, but, you know, I don't know that they have services, what the add-ons are, wood chipper and you know, whatever all these other options are, but, you know, maybe we should add wood chipping to the mix, you know? You didn't think of that until tonight.
Mr. York, it'd be great if the board decides it wants to use the same basic RFP that it did last time, so you're not reinventing. the
Right,
wheel.
well,
Otherwise,
that's
we
what I'm
can't get it
saying.
done.
I believe
I-
to get done.
Right.
So if that's part of the motion, that's great.
Absolutely.
That's what I was trying to get at, is we need to define what that term is, what those terms are, so.
I agree with that.
Yep.
I think
So-
our last
Since you made the
RFP,
motion.
great,
Would you maybe restate your motion or say that that's your intent?
but to use the same RFP,
Correct.
that's fine with the 3-year, with the 3-year, and a 2-year option.
I might even say, as opposed to the same RFP, the same terms of our current contract, because
Yeah.
I think from the RFP to the contract, there were some changes, true?
Yeah, yeah, and we said in the contract that the contract would supersede the RFP.
Right.
So that's one issue. The second issue I have is I sent you guys a letter saying I've done work with Rizzo, Waste Management, have financial relationship with both. Would you rather, like the Siebert and Pulaski firm that does a lot of municipal work, would you rather them take a look at it, give it to you to send out to they did Chesterfield, Macomb, a bunch of them, just gone out for bid. If you guys don't, want me to be involved, I understand that too, so it's up to you.
Well, I don't know, that's a question that whether we want or don't want you, but to avoid any impropriety, I think, you know, that might be something to consider. I think that might be separate from the motion, though.
Okay.
I think we can direct you to do that. I don't know that it requires board action or not.
I don't think it does, I just wanna make sure it's makes.
Yep.
This is what I would say. Whoever, whether it's Siebert and Lasky or Huth, whatever, make an RFP based on our current contract.
Correct. Gotcha.
But,
So that you've made
it
that
fair?
point clear.
Yep.
Is there continued support, Mr. Brado?
yes,
Okay, sorry.
I'd like to
Mr. Campbell.
say, I think there were some issues with the financial terms of the contract up front that we worked out.
Whether there was bonding or whether there was a withholding.
Well, and what
of-
the terms were that we were gonna pay up front. Some of that kind
Right.
of.
Because there was prepaying, right, we had
Yeah.
to prepay.
Well, yeah,
Right.
what
we-
There were some
originally there
issues
was
that
a
we worked out with
$250,000.
Tringali that
Right.
need to be part of the,
Correct, and that was the point, meaning that if we honor, if the contract were to be a part of that, that would be the terms, and what that is basically withholding 3 months of collections.
correct.
Or a
That-
bond.
Right. Well, no, the contract is not a bond, it's 3 months of collections.
Yeah, that's right, it got changed. It didn't have a bond in the contract.
I am fine with a bond or 3 months.
That
I
might be the
don't,
best way to handle one or the other.
I don't care either way.
Alright, so maybe make that part of the motion.
That whole
Yeah,
3-month thing was a
If you're gonna
mess.
make a motion, I would say include that.
I would say also,
That 3-month thing actually worked out well,
Yeah, I-
because it gave us time to collect the link
Better than
before
the
it
bond.
came out.
yeah, but we had some issues that got worked out.
Yeah, it was the issues the first month, and then
understand, we
after
don't
that it
even
was
need
good.
to talk about a
'cause
bond
the
or
checks
the-
got cut.
A bond or
Well, it's your motion,
cash
Mr. York.
equivalent, I guess, or,
Or without, the town.
Right.
Yeah, a bond or 3 months,
Yep.
right?
yes,
Right.
withheld.
All right, continued support, Mr. Brado?
Yes.
We don't wanna deal with that again.
Further discussion,
And
board?
Mr. Chairman, so the terms then, so everybody knows, they're gonna be bidding 5-year cost for 5 years with the 2-year opt-out.
3-year opt-out.
In other words, you're saying a 3-year with a 2-year opt-out, but yet, when they put their bid in, it's what it's gonna cost for the next 5 years, just as we did with this contract.
Yes.
Correct.
Because what I'm looking at, and, you know, what gives me a problem between these two now, is with the Regional Transportation Authority. You know, one of them has no provision in here for over 100% increase in fuel cost. And if you don't think that's not gonna pass, that they're paying 33 cents a gallon for diesel fuel, you're dreaming. 'Cause that's gonna happen, and gasoline's gonna go 33 cents. So if we lock it in, we lock it in, and, you know, but I don't wanna see any contracts like one of the bidders came with a fuel adjustment cost either.
You know, I just wanna make sure I understand, Mr. Swakowski, you'd like them to come back with a 5-year.
That's what we had, if we're using the last contract, that's what they had to bid for 5 years.
And then the township has kind of an option at the end.
We still could opt out after 3.
Alright.
So
I
that's
just
why it had, with
I consider it a
the
3.
existing contract was a 4% increase,
You're saying the same thing.
was built in after you know, the years.
Further discussion? I know that we have an on-deck chair, but I know there are some folks here that might not normally be at the meeting, so if anybody wishes to comment at this time, we typically open the floor at this point for public comment if someone's in the on-deck chair. But seeing nobody, I will assume that there's no public comment. If there's no discussion and there's no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. York,
Yes.
Mr. Brado,
Yes.
Mr. Caprell,
No.
Mr. Swikowski.
No.
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. Witt. No. Mr. Verkast.
No.
Motion fails.
Is there another motion?
Mr. Chairman, this all started as we knew that the 3 years was coming up. And again, we have the option to opt out at any time for any reason through the whole process of selecting a single waste hauler. The opt-out provision was basically what everybody who was on that committee who sat there, Mr. Forlini, the clerk, Mrs. Jorgensen, 3 citizens and myself who sat there, was the concern of service. We were concerned about what type of, whether or not they were gonna provide the vehicles, whether they were gonna be, and we were gonna have trouble or what. That was our main concern. They bid for the 5 years, and that was it. When we came here on the 28th, it was a question, are we gonna opt out or not the last 2 years? Tringali then said, let us sharpen our pencils and see what we can do. And that's what we asked for, rate reductions. Didn't ask for any incentives, any carrots, whatever it is. I'm prepared to move forward with the motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the option 2 submitted by Tringali Sanitation, which provides for 2 years that we have left on the contract, and 1 more existing year, which would provide a savings of approximately $18 a year per resident.
Option 2.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Mr. Swikowski. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Caprell.
So we've sat here all night talking about a 5-year contract, and we're extending the contract 3 years? Are you kidding
Ending
me?
it 1 year.
No, I think
Are
it's
you
1 year.
kidding
An
me?
additional year, and I'm looking at
Are you
it to
kidding me?
protect
You
it on
said,
fuel
you said
costs.
you
Hang on,
argued
hang on.
over 5 years, and, oh, we'll go out after 5 years. It was a 5-year contract, it was a 5-year contract. And now you're extending it to a 6-year? This is the problem with this board. Unbelievable. I could see making the motion for 5 years, because that's what we sat here and argued for the last hour and a half. But 6?
When I looked at it from the standpoint, it gave you more savings on that year. And plus with projected fuel cost,
If you
that
look at,
price at the end of that 3rd year is $5 less than what it would go up this May. So in April, in 2016, you'd be paying less than what you'd be paying in 2013.
this is
You
what
don't want to vote against it.
Oh, I will, but
Well,
don't.
what's new?
But don't make an expense argument when all 3 of those years are more expensive than the
They are. I
proposal,
didn't say they
than the
weren't.
proposal from Rizzo. And,
I
you
didn't
know,
say they were. I'm looking at how much,
And I'm
I'm
gonna tell
looking
you,
at
I'm gonna
rates
tell you,
only.
when we leave this meeting, I'm gonna go and look at everybody's campaign finance, and I better not see any money.
And you won't.
I better not
You
see
won't.
any money. I can tell you I'm clean, because this whole thing smells to me. I don't see how anybody on this board can look at a Rizzo proposal just based on money for the citizens and saving, because we always do it under the guise, we gotta save the money, citizens' money, and sit here and vote yes on a proposal that on every front costs more than the proposal from Rizzo. I'm just sorry. I can't do that. I've been elected by the citizens, and I'm taking everything out and just purely money, taking all the emotion out of it, because if I was using my emotion, I would go with Mr. Tringali. But this is too much of a savings for this homeowner to pass up.
Well, I can certainly say, for one, would be more comfortable with option one, and although in the short term it's less savings, I feel that when we entered into a 5-year contract with Tringali, and we said to them that you can amortize the fixed expenses that you have over those 5 years, they could say, all right, well, the only way we're gonna lose that, the discussion centered around the level of service. I think they've provided that level of service, so I think it's clear that there's savings to be had. But to extend the additional year, it's short term, it's kind of attractive, but now we're kind of extending beyond what agreement we made initially in that contract. And I think for me, the issue is, I think if I enter into a contract, I know in my own personal business dealings, if I have a relationship with someone, you know, I kind of expect that relationship continues unless I don't perform. And I feel like Tringali has performed. It's clear that there are savings with both waste haulers, but I'm not sure that I'm comfortable extending it a third year. That's just my
Mr. Chairman,
position.
I'll withdraw my motion with the approval of the supporter and change it to approve option one for just the 2 years. That would take us to our 5-year contract.
Well, and
Just amend.
yep. So amend that to,
That's,
to
that
option
would,
one.
you know, the supporter.
I know that would make me more comfortable, but I can't speak for other board members. But you'd asked for an amendment, Mr. Capital.
Continued support for the new proposal.
Okay.
The savings, just so the citizens are clear, the carrot that's dangled, you know, we're talking $500,000 of savings. Under both proposals, it's $500,000 savings because we're using an inflated cost of 180 or 173 for the next couple of years. The $40 for the first quarter is a loss to the citizens, a direct consumer loss of $320,000. Just so everybody's clear. So don't anybody try and tell me that we're doing this for saving money.
Well, did you include that $300,000?
Well, if
Because that's not to the residents right now.
Well,
That's
we
just
could put
in our
that,
pocket.
if this board chose to do that, that $320 now becomes $620,000 direct savings to the customer and well over $1 million savings over what we're currently gonna pay for the next 2
I was
years.
just asking.
3 years,
I was
that's
just
3
asking a
years.
question, Darren. If that included the 300.
That figure was for a 3-year contract. I
Oh,
mean, just for
okay,
clarity.
you're right, you're right,
Yep.
you're right. I don't know, that $600,000 carrot's just too much for me, I'm sorry.
I understand.
I mean-
I don't blame you for saying so. It's a very attractive figure.
And I'm pretty
I
adamant
get it.
about it too. In my life, I wouldn't just give $300,000 away.
It's a lot of money. And I've been trying to provide an even playing field for both waste haulers, but, in addition to anybody that hasn't bid yet, but it's too much money to ignore.
Understood.
I mean, $600,000. We're saying to the citizens that we're gonna take $600,000 of your money.
Is there further discussion, or would we open up the floor for public comment? I don't know. Is there other further board discussion? We'll open up the floor for public comment.
No, I just wanted to, because there was some discussion about fuel, and no matter what fuel does, we don't have a fuel surcharge in our bid. And secondly, the only other suggestion, I've been in a situation where this had happened before, and what they decided to do was a 1 year with a 1 year option. So, just so that, and I've seen that happen, so I'm just, was giving that option out there, so that would give you plenty of time to think about if you wanted to extend the additional year or whatnot, or do a 1 year with a 2 year option, because you have that pricing. So just a suggestion, but I just wanted to also make sure it was clear that our pricing doesn't have any fuel escalators, no matter what happens with fuel. Thank you.
Fair enough, thank you. If there's no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. I know we've discussed this at length, and it's a pretty difficult decision before us, and I think we're in essence, we're weighing a financial incentive versus kind of an obligation to a trusted supplier.
Well, they're both financial incentives. I think that has to be made clear to everyone.
Yeah.
We have a contract right now. If we do nothing, our rates are gonna go up in 2 months to $173.44 a year. By doing either thing, we are saving money. I mean, I don't want anyone to get the impression that we're not here for your best interest. That's the reason we went to Tringali. That's the reason we had them sit down with us and try and work these numbers down. We're trying to bring the rates down.
Right. And they voluntarily offered approximately $230,000 of savings in a 2-year period. If we wanted to look at a longer extension, then if we have, for comparison, we have a 3-year proposal from Rizzo. We have a 3-year proposal from Tringali. The original contract was basically 5 years, or 3 plus 2. In the 3 plus 2 range, voluntarily, Tringali is offering $230,000 in savings. Rizzo has a 3-year option that has a greater amount of savings, including a front-loaded financial incentive. But I think Mr. Witt's point is valid. We wouldn't want any resident to think that either option doesn't come with savings. But certainly it's clear that the Rizzo proposal, if we were to extend a 3rd year, has some financial incentives that make it very attractive. The issue is whether or not we are gonna establish a relationship with our suppliers, whether it's our attorney, whether it's our waste hauler, or whether it's the company that rebuilds the motors for us when we've got a failure at a pump station. In the long run, we're looking to have a relationship with those people and treat them the way that we might wanna be treated. I can't say we, I know that would be my position.
$1 million is $1 million. Sorry,
I get it. It's very,
mean-
I totally
$1
understand.
million is a lot of money.
Right.
You know, if we're talking, 20, 30, 40, but the Rizzo proposals, the 280 that you're talking about, plus the 600, I mean, I'm in the minority here, I understand, I get it.
Any further board discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Switkowski with support by Mr. Caprell to exercise option 1 in the letter received February 14 of 2013. Mr. Witt, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Yeah, Mr. Swakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Caprell,
Yes.
Mr. Brado,
No.
Mr. Tominello,
No,
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkast, I'm sorry, Mr. York, I skipped
No.
you. Mr. Verkast,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to both parties for very honest and generous proposals. Next on our agenda is item B2, the ordinance officer position. Board members, as you know, our current ordinance officer is retiring, and so I approached the board, I think it was last month, asking to post internally as well as to advertise for the ordinance officer position.